We're going to start moving to the exterior inspection part of our 20-part checklist. And for this, there's a couple things we need to get set up first before we even go look at the vehicle. And it's actually one more question. Let's say that the particular seller answered everything correctly and you want to check out the vehicle. So the thing you want to do first is you want to ask or tell the seller, please don't start the vehicle before I get there. So when you make your appointment, tell them, please, I'd like to start it up cold. Now you may be wondering why. There are certain things that will show up in a cold engine that wouldn't show up in a warm engine. We'll cover that next. So the seller says, okay, come on over tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock, whatever. And you go there. So now we want to verify that the engine hasn't been started. So the first thing you do is when you get there, you open the hood. Don't start the car yet. Open the hood, walk around, and put your hand on the top radiator hose. If it feels the same temperature as the outside air, then the car wasn't started. If it feels warm, then the car was started, and you need to ask the seller, have you started this car recently? And wait for his response. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go in the car, and if there's a temperature gauge, you're going to turn the key on. You're not going to start the car yet. You're going to turn the key on, and you're going to look at the gauge and see if it has a temperature reading in it that's higher than the outside temperature, or that the needle moves. If it does, the car is warm. That's a red flag. The other thing you're going to do is you're going to look for the lights on the dashboard when you turn that key on. Do not start the car yet. Just look at the lights on the dashboard. You might see an ABS light come on. You should see it. If you don't see an ABS light, then somebody's messed with the bulb. They might have pulled the bulb out of the ABS light because it's a problem, or they might have covered it up with a piece of tape inside the actual control module, which I've seen happen, by the way. The next thing we need to do is we need to start the car up. So we start the car up and we listen. And what we're listening for is normal sounds. And the normal sounds are pretty simple. The first normal sound you're going to hear is the clicking noise, and that's the lifters firing up, and the oil gets pushed up into the engine, and that noise usually goes away in a few seconds. Your idle speed will be high if the engine is cold, and that should come down within the first minute. And then you should see a smooth idle after that for the next couple of minutes. If you hear a clicking noise and it gets louder, or it continues and it gets worse, or the engine runs rough, or the idle stays high, that's a red flag. Here's the other thing. You need to walk to the back of the vehicle. Now, leave it running, go to the back of the vehicle, and we want to do a smell test. Okay, we're going to look at the exhaust pipe and we're going to smell. I don't want you putting your nose down to the exhaust pipe. I just want you to stand back there and look and smell. First of all, 3 things. If we see white smoke and it's just one puff after it started, that's fine. But if that white smoke continues, that's a coolant problem. You could have coolant leaking into the engine. If you see blue smoke, once again, one puff, no big deal. But if you see blue smoke continuing, then that means that typically the car is burning oil. So there's a problem in the cylinders somewhere typically. And now if you see black smoke, like a puff of black smoke is no big deal once again. But if it's continued black smoke, that means there's a fuel mixture problem. So these are all red flags. And by the way, if you see that white smoke and it's a sweet smell, that means that the engine is literally burning the antifreeze, and you will smell it. Now we'll do some other stuff to check the car externally. And one of those things is going to be checking the tires. I want you to bring a penny with you, and I want you to stick it upside down into the tire tread and look at Lincoln's head. If you can see his hair, those tires are no good. A tire on a vehicle nowadays typically has what's called a wear mark. It's usually a little piece of rubber that goes in between the tread. If you see tread above that mark, the tires are good. They're usable. If you see the tread equal to that mark, in other words, it's flush going across, the tires are wore out. That's why that's there, to show you that the tires have worn out. So now we're gonna check the body of the car. This is part of the exterior check, and what we're looking for is to see if the car was in an accident, if there's any telltale signs that the car was repaired and the seller didn't tell us, or maybe the seller didn't even know. And the way you do that is, the first thing I like to do is get in front of the vehicle and sight down the left and right sides where the hood meets the fenders. Those gaps should be equal. If there's a wide gap in the front or a wide gap in the back of either left or right sides, typically that's telling you that whoever worked in the car didn't align the hood or the fenders properly. That indicates a possible accident. Then you want to go to the side of the car. And now you want to look at the side where the door jamb or the door itself meets the fender. Once again, that should be an even line. And you go to the door jamb part where you open the door, and that line where it meets the quarter panel, once again, should be a nice even line. So you want to look at that. Then you go to the back of the vehicle and you sight down the trunk and the hood. The trunk line should be even again, both left and right sides. And then you look for a height difference in both the hood. Let's say the hood doesn't meet the fender properly. There's a height difference. That indicates a very possible problem with an accident not being repaired properly. And you'll see the same thing in the trunk, by the way, if somebody didn't align those. Now, if somebody did align everything and the car was in an accident, typically they did a very good job, so that's no big deal. You also want to sight down the car left and right side. So you get in the back of the car or in the front, wherever the lighting is the best, and you sight down that car. And you're looking for waves in the body. You're going to look at the body lines, and if the body lines do this somewhere, and I'm exaggerating, but if you see dips in the lines, that means the auto body person who repaired the car didn't do a good job, and he's literally exposing the fact that the lines may not be correct and that the car was actually repaired in those spots. So once again, very simple check. We want to do that to verify that the car is a straight car and a clean car and hopefully no accidents. And if it, once again, if it had an accident, it doesn't mean it's a bad vehicle, by the way. It just means that you have room to negotiate because it had an accident. Now, the next thing we want to look at, and this is kind of important too, is the fluid checks. So while the hood is open, or open the hood again and pull out the dipstick for the oil. You want to look at that dipstick, and number one, you want to see that the oil level is where it should be. If it says add oil on the dipstick and you can see that, that means the owner or the seller is not doing a good job maintaining the vehicle. That's kind of a red flag. If the oil looks milky, in other words, oil should look brown and clear. Should be like looking at a cup of tea possibly. But if you see brown and milky looking oil, then that means that there's some coolant in the oil. That's a red flag. Then you want to pull out the transmission dipstick in the back of the engine, and you want to verify that that is a clear red. Once again, you want to smell that one. You want to put the dipstick from the transmission up to your nose and smell it. And if it smells burnt, you'll definitely smell a true burnt smell. That's telling me that the transmission may have a problem. So keep that in mind. And then the final fluid check is, and it's a good idea to like bring a towel or something and lay it on the ground so you can put your knees on it. Get on your hands and knees and look under the front of the car, toward the engine, of course. And what you want to verify is there's no puddles under the car. If there is a puddle and it's green and it's under the engine, that typically means that it's leaking coolant. And what you'll see is if you ran the engine, let's say for 5 or 10 minutes and turned it off, what happens is if the water pump is going bad, the water pump will leak after you turn the engine off. So it'll literally leave a puddle under the car. We're checking for that. The next thing is if we see a black stain, that's typically oil leaking under the car. And that could be from a valve cover or it could be from the engine oil pan itself. Another red flag, by the way. You don't want to get into those kind of repairs. And finally, if you see red fluid under the car, the transmission is leaking. And once again, transmission repairs are very expensive, so I would call that a red flag. So that covers the exterior inspection. And now we're going to move to the interior inspection in the next video. Thank you for watching this one. Please go to the next video. I think you'll learn a lot more.